Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talking Horses Kentucky Derby Day edition. We have a great card here as well. Greg Wolf alongside Sarah El Badwi. A lot of reasons to look at Belmont at the Big A this afternoon. Pick 6 carryover begins in our 6th today. We have a $35,000 carryover. We have the Alabama winner coming back as well.
And Baby Yoda was one day early for Star Wars Day yesterday,
Yes.
so I know a lot of people were ripping up their Pick 6 tickets because of that. But carry over into today, plenty of stakes action later on the card, full 11 race card, lots of competitive races, and just something to look at between the card at Churchill Downs for the Derby.
I look at those things too. May the 4th be with you, by the way. I didn't even put those two things together. Had I known that, I would have used that
Baby
horse.
Yoda?
Yes.
Ah, man.
Brutal. Yeah, I feel like
If
that
only.
horse, I mean, there's actually a couple of horses, it's very good handy. David Aragona, I know Mike Beer both like that horse that won to kick off that late pick 5. That horse had a chance too, had a really good pedigree for the grass, but paid a huge price, kind of sneaked through there.
Absolutely.
We'll see what happens today though. Good card. We have a lot of business to get to in a minute. First things first though, Kentucky Derby, who do you like?
4, Catching Freedom. You?
I think Fierceness is going to dominate. I think he's so much better than this group that he could regress 3 or 4 lengths and still win. So we will see what happens.
All right.
Fingers crossed that, yeah, right now, clear weather. Let's get no more rainfall coming in. It was supposed to be early, I think, light rain, and then we're good. Let's hope that's the case. Bet the Derby, bet all of it, including this Pick 6 carryover today and beyond, the entire Triple Crown with Now Our Bets. Get signed up, started. You get a free $25 bet in the Kentucky Derby and that $200 deposit match sign-up bonus. Punch in Derby25, that promo code at sign-up for new members to take advantage of those promotions, and you're set to play it all. Track stats, part of it when you're an Ira Bets member. You can bet smarter, win bigger with track trends, stats, betting insights, part of the package. Pick 6 we talked about begins in race 6 today. I believe what that 2-horse race we'll get to. Drake's Passage, Cash Case. Looks like a 2-horse race in there. Begins with that one. You gonna single?
No, I went in a different direction than both of them.
You did?
I did.
Interesting. Okay, we'll get to that coming up. Middle pick 4. Don't forget about that this afternoon as well. We also have a big bonus for you to play $250 Belmont at the Big A and at Churchill Downs. Bet $250 each on those 2 tracks. You get a $50 bonus in your accounts. Win or lose, got to opt in for that promotion. If you've already made a bet, then you opt in. Does that count toward it?
No, you have to opt in first.
Cross country pick 5.
What, do you need
Always
to go
opt
pick
into the
something?
promotions ahead of time. Learn your lesson. Take it from me. Cross country pick 5 begins at 4:39 Eastern, including a couple of races at Oaklawn. And those first 3 coming from Belmont at the Big A, part of that sequence. And our show, do you begin it?
I do. You end it?
I do. I'm on later. Coverage starts 2 Eastern, Fox Sports 2. And we'll have plenty of coverage of all the big racing going on out in Louisville. Derby coverage as well. Selections from everybody. And our terrific card that we have here today. I'm very excited about this card we have coming up. Let's get into it. Kick things off on the grass, mile and a 16th in this maiden special weight to begin things. And I'm waiting to see our picks come up here.
Mystery.
First time starter for you. What'd you like?
I mean, this one is a half to a horse that was pretty precocious, going out for the same connections, and that's Conversing, who did run second in his first 2 starts as a 2-year-old. He's now a 2-time winner on the grass. And looking at this work tab, this is a horse that was training as a 2-year-old. There's a big gap, and obviously that's not necessarily something you want to see as a positive sign, but I do feel as though there's been a solid foundation of works coming into this one, including 3 on the grass. And while this is not necessarily a barn that's known to win first time out, there's some win early type of pedigree for this horse as well. So that's why I wanted to go with a bit of a price, because I'm a little bit tired of the 2 for Chad Brown, to be honest. One that I see that you put on top, who obviously both of them could win.
Tired of them?
Yes.
Okay.
Aren't you tired of Positive Carry? I mean, you're not, but.
I actually loved that start from him last time out. Well, the other ones only started twice, Spaladay.
But she was such a short price last time. Shouldn't she have done a little bit more running?
We'll see. We're going to take a look at Positive Carry's race from 2 back, and the race after that was a race taken off the turf. The horse has been on the turf. That was the 3rd time on the grass. I actually loved the finish from this horse. It was another Chad Brown horse that won this race, who was a first-time starter, expatriate. This horse got bottled up a little bit, I thought. on the back stretch, had to wait for a little bit of running room, and then I loved the turn of foot this horse showed. This horse really kicks into gear, and I know didn't get the win, but still, this horse shows the ability to just really quicken in the stretch. And visually, I loved what I saw. I like this horse a lot today.
Does it bother you at least a little bit that the 2 faster numbers are on synthetic? They're not faster by much, and I don't know how they are on Thorograph, but on Buyers, they're just a little bit quicker.
No, I love that race that we just saw. I
Okay.
liked what this horse put in. The horse did get bottled up a little bit and had to wait to put in that kick. I think with a little bit better trip today, this horse is going to be tough.
All right. I just don't love a beaten favorite 3 times. And these are horses for these types of connections that you kind of would have expected them to get the win by now in these types of situations, not be a horse that keeps taking a lot of money and being right there, but not necessarily getting the victory and is now making her 6th start. And then with the other Chad Brown, I mean, yes, good field that she was facing at Keeneland, but I can't necessarily say that she had a worse trip than the winner of that race, who could be a pretty good horse and is the half to Shirl's Spite, who rallied from last in there. But I don't know. I mean, did she run a better race than the winner or the 2nd place finisher? I don't know.
She had to take up early a little bit in that race, too.
She did, but I mean, the winner was closing from so far back, and then the 2nd place horse, Pin Up Betty, was a part of the pace that started coming apart. So I just didn't think that she ran the better race of the top 3 in there, and ultimately that's why I went elsewhere. But they
All
can
right,
both
so that'll
win.
kick things off. Race 2 on the main track here, 1-turn mile. Coming up, allowance optional claiming spot in here. I thought this was a really interesting race. There's a lot to like with Patricia Ann. Let's actually start with her. And we're going to show this race from back on March 28th. The 4-horse in here. She's actually faced some really good company. Regulatory Risk I included in my plays yesterday. I thought she could make a big impact. Ran very good in that race. Then had to face Value Area, who was 3rd in the Ruthless. The only time on a fast track she won.
Yeah, I mean, she makes a lot of sense. I think she's a horse that's likely to be forward. You know that she's kept some good company from big, high-profile barns with Todd Pletcher and Chad Brown, and you know that she's sort of held her own against those types of horses. So I don't have a big knock on her. She did improve a little bit, getting over to the sloppy sealed track, going the 7 furlongs and cutting back slightly. And I also just wondered if Camera might try to press her early, a horse that has a little bit of early speed when she was able to win. But with Camera, it was also that she was on a really good rail last time when she was able to get the victory, and that concerns me a little bit with her.
Yeah, I saw Andy had that on Track Trends, and the rail, I guess, was doing very good that day. She actually was on the back stretch most of the way. She was on the 2-path. A lot of the way coming down the stretch, too, she was in the 2-path. It eventually did go down to the rail, but she didn't hug the rail most of the way. Maybe it was a little bit of an advantage. I just saw her, too. Last couple of races, she's paired up numbers where I know Andy didn't like her at all last time, too. He's just not a fan of this horse. The $1 million horse that all this attention with that pedigree, too.
It's almost like a classic Causeway in training, right?
Yeah, a little bit. Look, I did like her last time. She controlled in that race. And, Autumn Evening beat Catching Heat. She held off Catching Heat last time out, too, stretching. I just think she's going to get better from this, one of the best barns in the sport here moving forward. In the last 2 starts that she has paired up those numbers, I think we're going to see a forward progression today. But I'm interested to see how she does it because there are some other horses in here that look like they're quicker.
And also with her, she doesn't have some sort of big numbers edge on several others in this field.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have to think, okay, maybe it was a little bit the rail trip, but it was also her stretching out in distance for the first time, 2nd start off a layoff. The horse that did beat her got a kind of a crazy trip in her first start, very practical. So you have to think that with these types of connections, this is a horse that's going to continue to move forward, just like you said, but at a slightly better price. If that ends up being the case with Autumn Evening, she is just a little bit faster so far, but she'll have to handle the stretch out in distance.
Yeah, that was my concern.
Yeah.
But main things you liked about her, you just think she can be forward?
I think so. It was one of those weird days where the track sort of changed throughout the day. On the 9th of March, she was stalking to the outside. She upset that field over a 3-2 favorite who did come back to win in Roman Grace. And the 3rd place finisher, as you mentioned, Catching Heat, she returned to run 2nd to Camera with that same number. So amongst those top 3, the number does hold up in that respect. And I do feel as though if she can handle the distance, she is likely to be forward, but she's already shown that she can rate a little bit. And I know coming out of the sprints, she's likely to have some speed, but at least already proving that she can sit off horses towards the outside. I did like to see that.
Yeah, that was one of the edges, too. This Camera's done it at a mile, too. I think, but what price do you think Patricia Ann's going to go off at? Probably 7-2?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't see her being anything less than the third choice.
Might be a good play
more.
at 7-2.
Maybe.
Just with the company she's kept. That kicks off the early pick four. That third race coming up, $50,000 claiming event. Another one-turn mile in the spot. Huge scratch. One of the biggest scratches on the day in here with Bold Endeavor coming out.
Yeah, absolutely. And a horse that I liked a little bit in the other part of the entry as well, coming out, who had been facing much better company. But this is a horse that was going to be kind of that likely single and move on for a lot of people. A very short price favorite who made a lot of sense in the spot with the numbers that he was running relative to this field, so he won't be playing in here.
All right, so what'd you like with Centavo?
I just am a big fan of this horse. I mean, he is one that I feel as though for a while he was always really outrunning his odds against better company and sort of holding his own against much tougher horses. And I think you could make the argument that over the past several starts that he's made, he has tailed off from who he was around this time last year. And so that is obvious. And so he is taking that little step up in class. But he was wide last time out, and Colloquy is a pretty decent horse as well as Thunderian at this time. So I think that if he can sort of refine those races that he showed sort of in February around this time last year, he could still get the job done in this spot.
It's totally changed things with this 7 horse coming. Were you going to pick the 7?
No.
Initially? No? You're going to try and beat him?
I was going to pick the regular one.
I like Grandpa's Kid in here. I think this horse is kind of trending in the right direction. The last few starts, we see just a progression of this horse moving forward quite a bit figures-wise. That last race, last time out, able to get the win for that 50,000 starter allowance. Seeking Unity was second in there. That was a horse who, his last 5 starts, he was actually really trending in the right direction. His figures were going forward quite a bit. He'd actually win his next race moving forward with an 83 buyer at the very same level. And when he beat Seeking Unity that day, Seeking Unity had the much better trip. He actually was wider than Seeking Unity, and still was able to get the best of him that day. So I thought there were some things to like with him kind of going in the right direction.
Yeah, no, I see the case for him. Did you think that Magnolia Midnight might be alone on the front end and he could possibly be dangerous? I feel like he's kind of fallen apart.
Yeah, I mean, he got a good figure for that last effort too, but it was a figure that, at least with the numbers I look at, he hadn't come up with in quite a while, and he still was a pretty distant second. But that race makes him dangerous.
Yeah, I think so.
Race 4, 50,000 starter allowance, one-turn mile on the dirt as well. We finally agree here. Lucency from the inside, off the claiming off of Rick Dutrow, but this horse has a lot of things seemingly in his corner and it potentially could control from the rail. And I like the fact, too, protected off the claim here.
I do as well. And I mean, this is a horse that has run against some decent company over his past couple of starts and run well. When you look at his maiden special weight race where he was able to get the victory, we're going to see Heroes Medal a little bit later on in the card I think he's running at Churchill today, or is he running here?
Heroes Medal?
Yeah. Not here. Everything's jumbled in my
check.
brain after looking
I'd have
at
to
everybody.
check.
But he's running today. And then to come back and have that second place to American Law, it was kind of that blanket finish, but we did see Expected Value come back and run a big race. Maybe you say he was wide against a good rail in that next start, and then he did what he was supposed to do to get the job done last time. So I just think that relative to the rest of this field, he's more class tested and has shown that he can hold his own regardless of kind of who he's against.
Yeah, again, I think he controls potentially from the inside. And to that last start, he ran a big number, but it wasn't, and it was a little faster on Thoroughgraph than it was on Buyers too, but it was not out of the realm of really what he's been doing. It's been like a natural progression for this horse. But as you said, I mean, Ben Duke, he had no chance in that race. Ben Duke might be one of the best, I don't know if he's, classic contender, but you never know. But he's not far off. He's a major player potentially in the older horse division, I think, coming up. American Law had a win at this level a couple of starts earlier. You mentioned Expected Value, who he finished ahead of. That horse came back for Chad Brown, won an open A other than with a 90 buyer. There's just a lot to like from this horse in this spot. We're going to take a look at Mighty Atlas in here as maybe just an alternative. This horse missed by just a nose last time out. This was back on April 13th. Made a decent sort of stalking middle move in this spot. You have him, what, third?
Yeah, I mean, I feel as though this is one that sort of had the chances at this level, whereas I think we both see Lucency as that horse that he dropped in class last time, but relative to his races prior to that, this could be a softer field than what he was facing in the past, versus Mighty Atlas is a horse who's kind of been at this level. And I know horses like Suerte and Mystical Curlin are pretty nice allowance horses, but it's still the kind of company over his last two that I kind of expected a little bit more in his last two races relative to who he was facing.
Something very interesting about this race, too. Mandatory payout pick 5.
Ooh, exciting.
Begins in this 4th race, and Sarah and I just giving you a single to start it off.
Yeah, we'll be right, obviously.
Boy. Race 5 next on the turf, mile and a 16th. This race, to me, was so difficult. A starter optional claiming race. It's on the outer turf. What'd you like about Into It?
I think this horse could be forward in here. I mean, I think that this is one that when Jose Gomez has ridden him in the past, he's been able to get some forward position when he got that win at Saratoga, breaking this horse's maiden for a tag. And then I haven't been in love with his last couple of starts, but they've tried a couple of different things with him. They cut him back in distance. Maybe he was going a little bit further than he wanted to first off of the layoff. He was running well to win that race in between his layoff race and coming back last time out. And then I also just think that he had a little bit of a trip last time. He was really keen in that race as well, and maybe just didn't really appreciate that cut back in distance. And I think now he's getting a lot of things that he might want to do in his favor, as for in terms of the distance that he might prefer and being able to have some forward position. And I think Lord Flincher could be a better horse than him, but he just never wins. And so that's my concern with him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have him in my top 4. I'm going to use him. Any exotics I play, this race is very difficult. He's a major player. There's no one to love in this race. It's a crapshoot a bit. We're going to take a look at Lord Flincher. This was 2 starts back. Missed by 3/4 of a length against Harry Hood, who actually would come back and miss by a nose in the Grade 2 Pan American. To flatter his form a little bit. But yeah, you say he doesn't win a lot. Nobody in this field really wins that much. He's 1 for 22. I just feel like he's faced some decent company. And he had a lot of good races last year as a 5-year-old. Not just the Harry Hood race, Indian Mischief. I didn't think he really had a chance in that race. That horse went gate to wire with incredibly slow fractions that day, and he still had a pretty good showing of himself to run second, be less than 2 lengths. So enough good races for him that I think are faster than most in this race. And I trust this trainer, too, to have this horse ready to go and be able to finish off the bench.
Do the 8 seconds bother you, though, relative to the 1 win?
I like the 8 seconds.
You do?
In this scenario.
Because do you think the company that he's kept is valid?
Yeah, and I just, some of the other horses in this race, I don't, he's not facing any superstars in here. I think this horse is going to run his race. He usually does. And it's, turf
he's
racing
consistent.
for this horses at this kind of level, you're not going to see these gaudy records.
No, you're not. I think that the argument for Victor's Valiant is that he's likely to go to the lead, right?
For who?
Victor's Valiant, the 9?
Yes. Yeah, and it's very dangerous. Trevor McCarthy's going to take advantage of that. I have him, I had him second in here. He's had some easy leads and has not been able, certainly last time out. And those Gulfstream races, too, I don't trust that form so much.
I don't either, especially once the meet is over, wherever they might go. It's hard to decipher how well they're going to do on a different turf course. And I think the other horse that's going to take money in this spot is Miracle Mike, and it's just that he's such this deep closer, and that's not usually what works here on the NYRA circuit in terms of turf racing.
I do like Shadazar a little bit, who I thought about putting a little bit higher in the spot, but it's another one coming off the bench. Moves to the Michelle Nevin barn. One of the biggest scores I ever had, actually, and Andy laughs about it all the time. Shannon Newski was on board. So I'd love to see Shannon back on board
there
here.
We go.
But this horse has figures that make this horse as competitive as anybody in this field.
And you'll get a better price.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting race.
Starts a pick 4 as well, by the way, that 5th race.
Oh, here's Hero's Medal.
What's
here.
that?
Hero's Medal.
Oh, here we go. So starts the pick 6 carryover, $35,000 carryover. I think most would feel this is a 2-horse race. You're going to go Oswald, let you start in here, but Drake's Passage and Cash Case are going to take the majority of the money.
They are, and I mean, deservedly so. Drake's Passage has shown us what he's capable of, and that consistency to run those higher numbers and to be one of the horses that you have to consider within these sequences, because he just is one that shows up pretty much every single time, except for his Empire Classic. And he's a horse that has that progressive improvement as well. He was able to run a really game second to Maker's Candy. And there's a lot to like about the company that he has kept throughout his career. So I don't have any big problems with him. My problem with Cascase is that This horse was on a rail that was beneficial in his last start, and that was a number that was higher than we'd seen from him in anything in the past. And he has some numbers that don't really make him competitive in this spot. And I think that when you look at him overall, you can excuse the Cigar Mile for sure. You can maybe say when he started his career that he needed a little bit of time to become the horse he is now, but there's still that one race where he was eased, and it just doesn't really bolster a lot of confidence for me with him, because I think he was benefited by the way the racetrack was playing in that start. So that led me to Moore's Law, who may not be very good, but is at least coming off the layoff. I trust Chad Brown with layoffs like this and bringing these horses back fit and ready to go. And I also think that some of the company he kept was relatively decent when he was trying to break his maiden. And even in that allowance race where he had a trip in there, he was taken up, he clipped heels at the start, then he's off for this period of time. You have to imagine that something went a little bit awry for him to have that time off and now to come back in this spot.
Okay. Yeah, see what happens. You're going to get a price on that horse. For me, it was such a tough decision in the spot because I have a lot of love for Drake's Passage. I really like this horse. And one of the best races he ever ran actually was the quickest race he's ever run. It was off the bench. He completely did. I know he won the Albany. He disappeared his next 3 starts. He blitzed that field fine. His numbers were very slow relative to what he did that first start off the bench. Finally got back to basically the same number, just a touch slower next time out to close out the year. And being that he's coming off the bench again, and he ran so huge off the layoff last time out, he could probably do it again. Mm-hmm. I disagree with you a little bit, and the rail was good early on that day when Cash Case won. It got a little more even later
throughout
in the day. And so
I think it kind of mitigated that.
I think it did.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, Ben Duke is a monster. He's an absolute monster. And this horse battled with him to the end. Maybe the rail did help him a little bit in that battle. And you look at him, too. The only times he's been on fast tracks, he's run big races. Every other time it's been an off track, he struggled, and I think maybe that's the reason why he's not been his best. And, one of those, you mentioned the Cigar Mile too, but I think a horse that's now coming back as a 4-year-old in that position, getting a fast track, showed his ability against that horse.
You don't think he ran well in that race in the sloppy sealed track when he came back off the long layoff behind Signator?
Yeah, he did run good that day. He ran good that day for sure. He got 89 Beyer, but the number that I think that Beyer was way too high.
Yeah.
Other figures not even close to that number.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not even close. Mm-hmm. But it was good effort. He's been a lot better on fast tracks, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
I saw it as a 2-horse race, but hey, if that horse hits, you're going to be one of few probably alive if you're playing multi-race sequences.
We shall
and
see.
Chad, always like
the other Chad.
We've learned usually in turf racing, but the last 2 years
Everywhere.
in the Diana, the biggest price of his 4s won the race.
Yeah, and it's the other ROI. That is must be astronomical if you think about it.
Late pick 5 begins in the 7th race, $16,000 claiming race, 6.5 furlong sprint coming out, and a few scratches in this spot. You're going to go with the Beach Boy Al, Jeremiah Engelhardt. Faced a pretty good horse last time out.
Yeah, I mean, he's just been facing better company here in New York on the NYRA circuit, and even at Finger Lakes. I think that those kinds of races, it's always tough to tell where those horses really fit in terms of class level here. But at the same time, I think that they really found the right kind of spots for him coming in, and that this is actually some class relief relative to who he's been facing over his last couple of starts. I don't necessarily love the fact that he hasn't had much early speed, if any at all, over his last couple of races, but I think the class relief that he's getting today and the fact that there is some speed in this race will both help him.
Okay. I went to the 5. You have the 5 second. We're flip-flopped here. We both like these top 2, but I like Bust and Shout in the spot 2 back for 32. He was second against Victorious Wave. Victorious Wave, 4 of his last 6 starts, he's hit 80 or better Beyer speed figures in that spot. The next time out, that was an unusually tough state-bred 25. Amundsen has major back class, pretty good horse. Market Alert actually won for Open 32 a couple of starts back in that race. He legitimately, in that Victorious Wave race too, got bumped pretty good early on and taken back to nearly last in that field out of the gate. So I thought he had an excuse, but still ran a very bang-up race. And I feel like there's plenty of speed to set it up for him today.
Yeah, I think so. I think you want to look for a horse that's coming from off the pace in this spot, because it seems like there are several that want to be forwardly placed, even with the scratches towards the inside.
Yeah, and just going back to that 32 race, he's in for 16 today. That 32 was 2 back. There's no one the caliber the victorious wave to try and run him down today.
No, there's no Donegal surges in here either.
Yeah. All right, so that's race 7. We move on to race 8, Grade 2, Fort Marcy, at 1 mile and an eighth. And I love Olympic Dreams. This is one of my favorite horses. What is he doing here on the grass?
I have no idea, but I hope he goes to the front because there's no speed in this race now with the scratch of Exact Estimate coming out and even the other scratches as well. I think that Ottoman Fleet is a horse that is the best horse in this race, but because of the scratches, I feel like I had to do something insane and put this horse on top because if he just goes to the front, he's alone and he gets comfortable. I think that he is already showing the kind of quality that he has in terms of his dirt races. And if any of that can translate over to the grass or perhaps even improve a little bit with the right kind of trip, I think that he could be a horse that I don't want to dismiss as what's going to be the biggest price in this field. And also, if you go back to the very start of his career, it didn't work out and he was off for a long time, but he did debut on the turf. So someone at some time did have turf intentions with him and see him as possibly a turf type of horse.
Okay. Ottoman Fleet, I just look.
He's the best horse in the race.
Several are going to single here. This is a much easier field than he had to deal with in this race last time when he still won the race. I mean, it's not even close. He beat some very nice horses in this race last year. Then he was third in the Grade 1 Manhattan. I mean, this horse is a massive standout in here. Charlie Appleby. His horses just always show up. I mean, he is so dominant on the international stage. It's very tough for me to look past this horse today.
And he comes in on a similar pattern that he did to winning this race last year with the victory last time out. I mean, I think there's just a lot of obvious things to like about him, as well as another horse later on in randomized. And I think those two are likely to be the most singled horses on today's card.
The 2 and the 4 I actually thought were a little bit interesting in the spot. They both came out with those horses gone. He's going to be very short in this race.
He will be.
You're supposed to remind me we're taking a break. I always forget.
Why do we need to take a break?
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.
Thanks to our sponsor, Saratoga Water, for helping make this program possible. We move on to race 9. I was going to forget. I was just going to roll right through everything.
That would have been fine.
Then we could just drink the water afterwards and have the, maybe we'll do that one day, rush through it. We got a turf sprint coming up next. Elusive quality, 6 furlongs, outer turf coming up in this 9th Belmont at the Big A.
We agree.
Oh, sorry, we're in race 10? Didn't we not talk race 9 yet?
We didn't talk race.
There we
nine.
go. Let's
There it
get
is.
back. There we go. All right, so we agree here. Had to change things a little bit. Let's start with our shot just real quickly. I
Sure.
like this horse a lot. I question the 6 furlongs with him a little bit.
I do too, and we've seen him have more success going a little bit shorter, and I'm not in love with his current form relative to the horses that he's going to be facing in here, and we can take a look at him finishing in that Aqueduct Turf Sprint Championship, third behind Allegan and Nothing Better, and if he really is going to end up being your favorite in this spot, I kind of just wanted to go in a different direction, as I see you did, at least for your top 2.
Yeah, well, I actually loved his last race. He has the fastest race of anybody in the field, I think. Even though he wound up 4th in that Shakertown. The 6 furlongs for me, I very much question him.
Yeah, he just seems like be one of those horses that really excels at Gulfstream or at Keeneland, going the 5, 5.5, and I don't know that this is necessarily his distance, and some might think that that's a little bit nitpicky, but I do really separate those distances with turf sprinters.
It matters, yeah.
Yeah, I think so as well. So I wanted to go to a different spot, but with American Monarch, my concern with him is that everybody's going to see what we see, and he's going to be a little bit overbet as a horse that's just finally getting back to the turf.
Yeah.
And if him and Nothing Better were around the same price like they are on the morning line, I'd be a little bit more inclined to bet Nothing Better, and I'd use both of them in whatever multis I'm playing. But I think that American Monarch, everybody's going to see that elusive quality win from 2 years ago in 2022, and that gaudy 98 Beyer where he was, when he finished third behind some decent horses in Scuttlebuzz and Therapist as well. So what did you like about him coming into this race?
I love that race. I mean, you look at that race, and that was the only time he sprinted on the grass, and he ran a huge figure in that race. And, he's 4 wide early in that spot, too. Scuttlebuzz had won 3 in a row. He got a 101 Beyer for that victory that time out. That's the time when he was really just on a serious roll, that horse, for Jonathan Thomas. Therapist had had been a good horse for a long, long time. And then we never seen him sprint on the grass again. So I want to see it again. I think he's very interesting. I always upgrade any horse when you get Jose Lezcano on the turf.
Yes, absolutely.
But yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons to like this horse today. And I felt some of the other horses, and a lot of these horses we've seen on the circuit for a long time, and I've been fans of, but I feel like they're not the best versions of themselves anymore.
Right, and I think that's what you can say about Yes and Yes and Thin White Duke, who ran well in this race last year, both being on either side of this field, inside and out. And I think that their best race absolutely gives them the opportunity to be successful in here. But I'm kind of with you. I don't really think that we're going to see that from them today, or we haven't at least seen that in a little while. Dancing Buck, I kind of wonder what price he's going to be, because he's the one that's been running well against the Graded Stakes Company out at Santa Anita. I don't know. He's faced horses like this in the past and not really shown up. Is he a better horse now?
Nothing better's got the best of him last couple of times, but yeah, it was a big effort last. He runs big ones on occasion. He loves it at this turf course. I wouldn't want to leave him out.
Yeah, that's fair. Is there anyone you would feel comfortable leaving out besides Durante? And even him, you could say, well, if he takes to the turf.
I'm not going to be using Durante. That's a tough race. I mean, I don't love Alagon in here. Bring me a check I'm probably not going to use. I've been a fan of Yes and Yes for a long time, but I'm probably not going to include him.
I'll tell him. He'll be very sad.
No, I've loved that horse for a long time, though. Durante, you didn't see anything positives for him on the turf?
I mean, maybe he is that quick on the grass as well, but I think these turf sprinters might have a little bit more early lick than he does.
Grade 2 Ruffian. In randomized, the Alabama winner is back. I did not expect that race in the Alabama from her in any way, shape, or form.
Me either.
Really shocked me. But she ran so big in that race. I actually did like her in the Breeders' Cup. She ran huge against Idiomatic, who came back and looked great yesterday, by the way.
Yeah, and I think really seeing Idiomatic return yesterday also is a feather in her cap with what we might see from her coming up in her 4-year-old debut, because she ran so well to finish second to her in that Breeders' Cup distaff that we can take a look at, where the pace was very honest in that race. And I know that Santa Anita is a track that does help front-end speed along a little bit, but these two were really setting legitimate fractions. It's not as though you were incapable of closing with Le Davida coming for third towards the outside. She was the inside of Idiomatic, who's an older horse than she is, and she really fought all the way down to the wire for this. And I just didn't really see the case for somebody else to beat her after that kind of performance. And I know you didn't either.
Yeah, even though she's coming off the bench, and this might be the time to get her. But look, this barn has them ready to go to off the bench. So how much do you put into that? You look at that performance. So it's so fun to have a champion back and run the way she did yesterday, too, for Idiomatic. It's fun for the division overall. But yeah, the way she ran against her in that Breeders' Cup, randomized, makes you think she's going to be a major player this year in this division. She's just such class-wise, stands so far superior over everybody else in this field.
Yeah.
Sheeta Beauty, I think, has a long way to go to try and make up against some of these.
I think so as well. She needs to get faster, but I think that her return race was at least a step in the right direction of doing so, because she had never run a particularly fast race in the past, but she was able to finally step it up a little bit numbers-wise, first off the layoff in this distaff that Ain't Broke and Fingal's Cave come out of as well. I know that she was closing, the pace was hot, the pace was coming apart. She had things sort of with the flow of the race, but if she can take another step forward, I think at somewhat of a price, I want to try to include her over Greenup, who she's fine and she's run fast races in the past, but since she had that winning streak and then hasn't, I feel like she's not quite the same as she used to be.
What do you think is going to happen here pace-wise? Because they're not just going to hand it to randomized, are they?
You would think that they wouldn't, but I think she might just be faster anyway, and especially from the rail, they might be intent on going to the lead.
Oh, they're going to go, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that if it did heat up and if there was some sort of pace, then I would feel comfortable using Sheeta Beauty in my exacta, but I think randomized gets it done.
All right. It's going to be very,
The shortest price
wishing,
on the card.
Are we wishing and hoping to get 3 to 5?
Maybe.
Might be 2 to 5.
She'll be the shortest price on the card.
Close it out. Mile and a 16th on the turf. And New York Breds, maiden special weight to finish things here. Boxed Wine got beat by...
Your Game of Silks horse.
Who was 100 to 1 that day, and I did not put a wager on.
Oh, devastating.
Brutal. Very cool to see, though.
Yeah,
What'd you like
absolutely.
with Boxed Wine?
I mean, this horse just has that 2-year-old form that if you imagine this one takes a step forward as a 3-year-old coming back, those numbers were good enough that with that progressive improvement, I think that she could be okay in this spot. And she's a horse that ran well when switching over to the grass, running second in both of those starts, first behind Awesome Check, then here behind Bertrill, who got very comfortable towards the front in this race. And I think that the third place finisher, a little bit naughty, you could probably argue that she ran a better race, but she doesn't draw into this field. So I liked at least having that experience and now returning as the 3-year-old for Boxed Wine.
All right. Yeah, look, major player. I went to the 3 in this spot because you both have the 7 there. Lorana second. Alette Doro, is that how you say that?
Could be.
Dylan Davis for trainer Tim Hills. I love the 2 sprint stretch out, especially on the turf. It's such a great angle to have that base and then be able to move forward. Dam was a 3-time winner on the grass. Was a minor stakes winner routing on the turf. Second Dam was a 6-time winner on the grass. Multiple stakes winner routing at longer distances too, at a mile and 3/8. I just think she's really going to excel going a little bit longer, and having those 2 sprints as that foundation. Today's the day if you want to play her, and I feel like you'll get at least 5 to 1 in here in this spot.
Yeah, I think that we both have Lorana second, but are you incredibly wowed by her? Of course not, because I haven't seen.
Yeah, no.
I don't really think that she's a standout in this field, and I think that others have that right to take the step forward, perhaps at a better price than she's going to be.
Lorana, would you like?
That's what I was just talking about with how.
Oh, you were talking about Lorana. Sorry,
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about the 3.
Oh no, I think that she's just not really a particularly.
She is gonna. Yeah, she's gonna get over bat.
She is. She's just not a standout, and I thought that she didn't really do much running first time out. I know that was a fast enough race to be competitive here, and maybe with that progressive improvement is the argument that I was making for Boxed Wine. Now she's a 4-year-old, and she's a 4-year-old that's facing 3-year-olds. So perhaps as that older horse in this field, that's the feather in her cap. But at the same time, I just hadn't seen much in that race to really prompt me to take her at a short price yet again.
I love to see these riders too getting these opportunities for bigger outfit barns with the big names out of town. It's a big weekend for them, for a lot of these guys.
Oh, absolutely.
So Victor Chamanon will be aboard there for the Clermont barn. That's going to close it out. Good luck, everyone. Pick 6 carryover again begins in race 6. Moore's Law.
Moore's Law.
Good luck.
Double carryover.
No, you're going to take home the whole
It'll
pool.
just be me.
Yeah.
If you don't see me tomorrow, you'll know why.
You wouldn't leave this job. Come on.
No, I wouldn't.
Reminder, play all the action. Get signed up. Started with Naira Bets. Play the Derby. And all summer long with us. Free $25 play with that promo code Derby25 and that $200 deposit match sign-up bonus. You also get this when you're Naira Bets member, track stats, and get all the track trends, stats, and betting insights. Got that pick 6 carryover beginning in race 6. 35,817. Good luck to everybody participating in that this afternoon. Don't forget, we don't have a graphic for it, but there's a mandatory pick 5 that I mentioned later today. That begins in the 4th, but middle pick 4 as well. Lots of options for you today. Belmont at the Big A, our opening Saturday of the meet. Derby Day, $50 bonus. Bet $250 at Belmont at the Big A and at Churchill Downs. Don't forget to opt in before you do it. And get that free $50 in your account, whether you win or lose. A little extra money could be the difference between a winning and losing ticket. Add an extra horse, you never know. Cross country, pick 5, Belmont at the Big A in Oaklawn. Races 8, 9, 10 here in New York, and races 10 and 11 at Oaklawn. Comprise that sequence, begins at 4:39 Eastern. And our program today on Fox Sports 2 begins with Sarah at 2 Eastern.
Just me. No, Acacia's there too.
All right, look forward to it. I'll be hopping on a little bit later. Happy Derby Day, everybody. Again, your selection in the big one?
Catching Freedom, Fierceness for you.
Fierceness for me.
All right.
Enjoy, everybody, and we'll see you on the air in just a little bit.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringWater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.